Hello, this is Waldem. Sorry about the delay. I'm trying something a little different this week. Anyway, let's get started. The objective of PVC-5 is to work chlorine into vinyl chloride to create chlorinated PVC, a specialized type of thermoplastic usually used to handle hot liquids. Here we have Britton's take on it. It's fairly straightforward, even if it is a bit slow. You'll notice that he's taking advantage of SpaceChem's topological flexibility. Not a bad idea since it takes some time. Britton winds up in the bottom of the list, well, close to it at least, but still, not bad. Genderbuild actually manages to find an application of particle smashing for this puzzle. Here he uses a chlorine catalyst, I guess you'd call it, to bond with carbon and overwrite one of the hydrogens. One advantage over the Britton solution is that this one generates no waste. Naturally though, since both Waldos are working together to create the same half molecule, the final time isn't very fast. The knife trims about 100 cycles away by slicing the molecule in half before smashing a chlorine in. He also times a simultaneous bond and debond to remove that extra carbon-chlorine bond and stitch the whole molecule together. I think that this solution created a complete molecule further left than any other solution that I saw. Check this out again, just the whole thing done, like that. I like it. Leveling demonstrates that cheaters never prosper with the particle smashing free solution. He did make a strange choice here though. He uses a starting chlorine as the seed atom for his garbage well instead of using a catch-all fuse drop command. I'm guessing that it's because he wanted his input beta timed right here, but that wastes 9 cycles total. I'd be surprised if he couldn't have changed the red Waldo's motion a bit to get the desired input beta and avoid the seed chlorine. This one by Carbunk also uses a seed atom, but for a good reason. He rolls the vinyl chloride by the fusion laser as he fuses, so there's never a chance for a hydrogen to get in there. I also really love how he adds an extra chlorine to the side of this one here, and it's just automatically used later. Looks cool, can't complain. Zindi Minner made this very fast double pump solution. No seed molecule, just an old-fashioned fuse drop. My only problem is that they double back on the chloride in order to bond to it. Why not input and bond at the same time? In any case, very fast. At least, for a solution that doesn't particle smash. GG Gall feeds in chlorides, bonds them into a vinyl chloride, then smashes the whole thing together into an unholy mess. Working in these double rotates also seems to save him a bit of time, though the chlorine transport takes a little while. I do have a question though. If you can smash a chlorine into a vinyl chloride like that, why not, say, smash using the chlorine on an existing vinyl chloride? Well, if you did that, you'd wind up with something like Crackhorse solution. There's a downside of bonding your chlorines together, but that's pretty easy to fix with the debond. Crackhorse just made it into the top 8, beating Karen's solution by submission time alone. Sorbaldrick, J-Bor, and Mr. Blarney all turned in a solution like this. No rotates or anything fancy, just efficiency. Though, really, it probably could have used rotates. I was asked why I named this puzzle PVC-5. If you look up PVC-4, that'll probably explain it. Tough Thought has a very nice handoff system going on. Blue constructs the halves and red moves everything to output. He actually caught an extra arrow in the last day of the round. I was a little disappointed that I couldn't point it out myself. Oh well. Ganibal 9 saves a little over 10 cycles by cutting off a cycle in his circuit. You'll notice how tough the solution must have been to create. The blue Waldo has just enough space to get everything done. Because of that, he wastes about 3 cycles between the time that he drops the molecule off and the time that he outputs it. Regardless, it's good enough for second place. But first place goes to Netherus, who gives the bottom Waldo a larger circuit instead of squeezing everything into a circuit that doubles over itself. Because of that, he has a lot more room to fit an output Psi in. Congratulations to Netherus on his first place win. So, better than graphene. I only really called it better because boron nitride looks a lot more appealing than a sheet of green carbons. Anyway, this is Alpha Raptor's attempt, and it's a bit symbol heavy. I do like how he makes the boron nitride U-block though. All of those rotates are nice to watch in action. Like most solutions, this one uses a sensor to know when the sheet is complete. It also takes a while. You did better than 2 other players, so don't feel too bad, Alpharaptor. Jabor has another high symbol solution, but it's also the fastest one that I received. Red makes a well-timed handoff to blue here so that red can keep making these block monomers. One of the bigger problems though is that Jabor's using his Waldos to perform a lot of complex actions. For example, if he was creating single sticks of boron nitride instead of blocks, you'd think that he could save some symbols. Let's look at an example of that. Though Guilty Bystander is still using 2 Waldos, both have a relatively simple job. The only complaints I have are the use of sinks as well as the squall of bonds. It left me a little bond-plussed. Moving along. Hello, Carlbunk. You don't need this symbol. This is probably one of the weirder ways to make graphene in an actually functional way. He places his boron nitride sticks horizontally of all things. This means that he has to place his first and last atoms separately. We'll be here a while. Anyway, Carlbunk still somehow manages to get his symbols pretty low. Don't ask me how. Zindi Minner made it into the top 8 with this solution. I was really surprised. Look at all these bond commands. I tried to play with this solution for a bit and have the red Waldo hammer on a bond, but I couldn't get it to work. Maybe if I built vertical sticks and avoided the rotate. In any case, Zindi Minner is coming into the tournament a little late, so I'm curious to see how they do in future rounds. Darius Raider scores yet another top 8 solution here. As I was mentioning before, he does a thing where red hammers on a bond command. The real downside though is that Darius is forced to hit debond commands to cancel out a few bonds. This complete molecule detection uses 5 symbols altogether. I think that most of the best solutions use more efficient ways to output the molecule. Take Guava Moment's solution, for instance. With only 3 symbols, he's managed a way to output his products. He's also found a way to have red run the same path forever, so he has no need to run a special output path. By the way, let's take Guava Moment a few cycles. This would make no difference for ranking purposes, but it's still something to keep in mind. Missing little things like this can cost you a position sometimes, and that especially would hurt in the closed tournament. Sudowoodo beat Guava Moment on symbols, but not by 15. Like Guava, he's also using only 3 symbols to detect a completed molecule. There are 2 things that I really like about this solution. The first is this flip-flop here. At the start of the solution, it actually pauses the Waldo for 1 cycle, but for the rest of it, the flip-flop always does exactly what's needed without wasting any time. Some players like to run a Waldo through the middle of a solution to prime a large set of flip-flops before starting the solution normally. This allows them to get away with using a single flip-flop, where normally a flip-flop and an arrow would have to do the job. Sudowoodo's self-priming flip-flop is pretty clever. The other thing that I like about this solution is the synchronized portion for the blue Waldo. It actually does a lot of bonding in the solution, but only uses 2 bonders. Serbeldreg does something weird. Instead of using a sensor to detect a completed molecule, he uses this. To explain how this works, basically there are 78 cycles in between every bond command here. Blue circuit takes 8 cycles to complete. This means that for every time this bond command activates, blue will desync by 2 on its route. So if this is the starting point, blue will hit here on the first bond, here on the second bond, here on the third bond, and then back to here on the fourth. So for every 4th bond, blue outputs. Perfect. It's hopefully straightforward when you think of it like that, but I can't imagine it was easy to make. But this wasn't enough to get first place. That honor would go to Krakor with this single Waldo solution. It's a little slow, since it has to run the whole circuit for every boron nitride stick that it makes. In fact, this is, by far, the slowest submission that I received. Even at full speed, we're going to be here a while, but it's the #1 submission, so damn it, I figure I can show it off. Yep. Sure made a slow one, Krakor. This whole round was a bit of a fight between Krakor and Serbaldrake. Both were improving their submissions pretty steadily, but Krakor managed to stay in the lead the entire time. Congrats to Krakor on his first place win. Liquid glass. I loved reading about this stuff. Some of my favorite applications for it are in the automotive industry. It's been used both to repair radiators and completely destroy engines. A bit conflicting, really. Naturally, we need to make some. Note that these are the first submissions for players, so they won't necessarily be their best work. Content Context is a good example. He accidentally submitted a solution early, the day after the round started, so I figured the least I could do is show it off. It actually turned out to be kind of interesting. He built an alternate shape for the polymer with this extended sodium arm. Also, I've never seen someone place each polymer fragment individually before. I guess that's one way to know when your molecule is complete. Content Context placed higher than 3 other players, and they all turned in solutions on the 1st of July or later, so not bad for an accidental submission. Dyer Spoon builds a more traditional sodium silicate monomer. I like how the fusion and fission math work out perfectly for this. Silicon and oxygen make titanium, split that to get sodium. Anyway, let's improve this solution a bit. Alright, so we'll have these face upwards, get rid of these 2 arrows, and move that. I made a mistake. Right! Yeah, it's over here. Okay, anyway. Basically the same solution, saving 2 symbols and winding up 1 cycle faster. I'm jumping up pretty quickly this time around, but I think there's a lot to say about the top 8 solutions. Anyway, GG Gall has a nice fusion and fission block here, very well suited for quickly constructing your monomers. This was the fastest solution in the top 20. At number 13, GG Gall will probably wind up in the top 8 once I recalculate rankings for the lower tier at the end of the open tournament. Anyway, Carlwick and Krakor submitted 28 simple solutions before GG Gall, but this one was by far the fastest. Waypoint submitted a 27 simple solution soon enough to make it into the top 8. This solution is actually really good, but I'll have to wait for later to explain why. I do like the relatively low use of sync stop at the completed chain. Instead of using 4, Waypoint just doubles back on the same route to make do with 2. By the way, you probably noticed that a single silica is supposed to have double bonded oxygens. To be honest, I didn't really think about it. Oh well, at least it made for interesting solutions. You would think that hammering on the bond would be a problem for Cairn, but he takes advantage of fission to work around it. Once the titanium is split, the sodium loses a bond since it can only handle one. Not a bad workaround. Cairn uses 5 symbols to manage his outputs. Still pretty expensive, but good enough for 5th place. This is kind of weird. Guava Moment uses a whopping 6 symbols to count to completion, but the rest of his solution is so efficient that it doesn't even matter. Like a lot of solutions, Guava Moment primes his flip-flops before doing anything else. With a little more work, it's possible that Guava could have beat the #1 solution, though I'm not 100% on that. Ganibal 9 has another unique looking solution here. The simultaneous bond and rotate is a nice touch. You'll see quite a few solutions rotate after making that box, but I didn't see any others that did so in quite the same way. Another interesting thing to note is that even though Cannibal submitted this solution before Guava, he also scored a faster time, so the challenge restriction didn't really matter. Sudadude uses a pretty weird timing wall though. This single bond command does everything. Bonds here, and bonds here. He even has it timed well enough that the output side only activates when the blue wall isn't holding anything. I'm not even going to try to do the timing math for this one. There are too many flip-flops for me to make it comprehensible for you guys. So, who beat Sudadude? Well, if you think about timing waldos, you'll probably realize that, of course, it's Serbaldrake. By the way, does this solution look familiar? It should. The red Watto does almost the exact same thing as a Waypoint solution. Waypoint was actually pretty close to first place if you'd done a few more tweaks. A few notes on this. First, this uses similar timing to Serpaldrig's better than Graphene's solution. Instead of red having a circuit length of 78, it has a circuit length of 38 this time around. The same basic concept is in place. The blue Watto outputs on every fourth grab-drop command. Additionally, do you see these bonds here? Well, basically, they mean that blue will bond on every odd number cycle. 3, 5, 7, 9, etc. As long as Serpaldrig times things well enough, he can predictably bond at all the right places no matter how much the blue Watto is out of sync. All he has to do is make sure that red circuit length is of even length. Well, that's all the puzzles I've got for polymers. Next round, we'll explore the exciting world of production puzzles and single reactor solutions and forced reactor placement. Sounds fun.